Back here with Tara Dowdell, Josh Barro, and Dorian Warren talking about if America is functionally an oligarchy at this moment, if it's functionally controlled by a wealthy few. And just three little data points. Total lobbying spending from 1998 to 2013, this is in real dollars. You see it goes way up. In 2009, there's a bunch of regulations passed that sends a lot of it underground, so it's still probably going up. It's just in the weird shadow lobbying economy. Outside spending by cycle, not including party committees. Look at that number. That is 2012. That's $80 million. Okay, we are like, that's like hockey stick climate in like carbon in the atmosphere kind of graph. And this is the per capita election contributions of the top 1% versus the 99%, and you see that going through the roof. So we are, if you can say, well, it's always been the case that some wealthy few are intermediating things and they have more power, we're actually seeing an acceleration, it seems to me.
Yes, but let's distinguish. There are those outside of government that want to influence government, and then there's the composition of government itself. So another political scientist, Nick Carnes at Duke, has written a book called White Collar Government, where he says if millionaires had their own political party, they'd be 3% of the population, but they're a majority of the House of Representatives. Right. They have a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. They are 5-4 majority in the Supreme Court. And by the way, the man in the White House is also a millionaire.
Right.
So it is white-collar government, literally. Well, those that compose it, much less those outside trying to influence
and partly that has to do with, Josh, your point about associational, right? Like, I know folks that used to work for the committees, like trying to recruit a member to run in a competitive race for a sort of competitive seat as a Democrat. And the first question is, can you raise $1 million? Can you raise $2 million? What's your Rolodex look like? Who can you call up that can write you a $5,000 check?
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I think we should just be cautious, though, about like what happens when the oligarchy falls apart. What's the alternative here? We've actually seen that in the Republican Party over the last few years. Now, you can look at the Republican Party and you see all this spending by billionaires, and it looks like there's more influence by big money in the party. But there's also this offsetting trend where the ability of elite forces within the party, big business groups and Republican leadership to control the policy direction of the party has actually declined. Wealthy Republican donors do not, for example, want the government shut down, or at least most of them don't. And you've seen the Tea Party base of the party basically reassert control over the policy agenda, in my view, taking it in a negative direction. You can also look in...
So that's interesting for 1 second, because I think what that's interesting about that is the shutdown, it sort of works against the theory in different ways, right? The shutdown, the Chamber of Commerce didn't want the shutdown.
Right.
The 1% didn't really want the shutdown.
Right.
At the same time, it was also broadly unpopular.
Right.
Right. So it's like, who does want this action?
Well, it was, I think, popular with conservative base voters primaries. So if politicians were saying, I'm not focused right now on my donors, I'm focused on my electoral base, in this case, the primary electoral base, that looks like the voters being in control.
You know what, Tara, this strikes me as an interesting point of the ability of the organized conservative base to kind of defy political gravity in this respect, right? I mean, that they are able to, and one of the things that comes up in the paper is organized interest groups, and it says it distinguishes between kind of business-affiliated ones and mass ones, that they are able to influence as well as just the wealthy writ large.
Well, yes and no, because at the same time, a lot of these grassroots Tea Party groups are backed by very wealthy billionaires. Right. But I think sometimes
distinguishing between the two is tricky.
Exactly. So you have to distinguish. But at the same time, sometimes they take that billionaire's money and they go off a little too far off the reservation.
That's right.
So that does happen. But they are still behind a lot of these grassroots movements.
And that's what we've seen a little bit of a Frankenstein effect. What I would say, though, is at the end of all this, what you see are, when you're matching the policy outcomes, which of course is the kind of real empirical work in this paper, is that you are seeing a real correlation between what people with a lot of money want to see happen and what the government does. And that basic fact, that is the basic existential threat to our democracy right now.
Absolutely.
But we've been here before 100 years ago in the first Gilded Age. Yes, we're in a second Gilded Age, but we've been here before. We can democratize our country again.
Political consultant Tara Dowdell, MSNBC contributor Josh Barro, and Dorian Warren from Columbia University. Thank you.